As a kid, I'll admit I wasn't too big of a reader. I never had that book that absolutely hooked me so much that I had to have more. Instead, it was video games that were my escapism of choice. And a majority of the reading that I did was firmly of the video game magazine kind. So if you were going to try to get me to do some heavy reading, your best bet would be to put something related to video games on the cover. Capitalizing on Nintendo fever that had swept the nation by the late 80s and early 90s, that's exactly what author and entrepreneur Seth Godin did with Worlds of Power, a series of books that were adapted from popular video games. Each was written by a different author under one pseudonym, FX9, and was aimed directly at young adults. My mom recently sold her house, my childhood home. While we were prepping to move her out, I unearthed almost a complete set of World of Power books from when I was a kid. Man, I loved them back then, but I barely remember anything at all from them. So I thought now would be the perfect time to revisit them. So let's start with volume number 1, Blaster Master.
Follow Jason into a mysterious underground cavern full of strange alien beings. Soon he's locked in battle with a gang of radioactive mutants, fighting to save the Earth from destruction. The complete story of the Nintendo action-adventure game, with loads of game-solving hints throughout.
You know, even as a kid, I knew that Blaster Master had a super flimsy story. Heck, that was part of the appeal for me. It felt like the kind of B-movie you'd see on a Saturday afternoon movie marathon. Jason Frudnick was your normal teenager. One day, his pet frog, named Fred, escapes from his aquarium. Hopping out of the house, Fred comes in contact with a radioactive box that causes him to grow in size. Then, he sinks into a hole in the ground. Of course, Jason chases after him, and then he ends up finding a four-wheeled tank buried deep within a subterranean passageway. The book follows this setup to a T, but it doesn't take long before the author begins to take some liberties with the story. Instead of just discovering the tank and going after Fred like in the game, Jason meets an alien girl named Eve. Now, Eve is the lone survivor of an advanced civilization that was eradicated by an evil alien creature, the hilariously named Plutonium boss. Using her tank, called Sophia III, she has tracked the alien entity here to Earth. What's kind of weird about all this is how close it seems to the story of the Japanese version of Blaster Master, called Metafight. The story and setting in that game is totally different, but you have a girl named Nora Satellite who is the only survivor of an attack by an evil intergalactic emperor bent on total domination. Come on, that has got to be a coincidence, right? There's no way that Sunsoft gave the author of this book the materials from the Japanese game to draw inspiration from. Maybe a developer would do such a thing these days, but in 1990, no way. Before you know it, Eve hands Jason a flight suit, helmet, and laser gun, and they're off to save the world. You know, I never really thought of game worlds and enemies in real-world context. Describing things that just make sense in games and transferring them to another medium doesn't always work so great. It's here that the author really seems to struggle, to sometimes hilarious results.
What is that thing? Was all Jason could say. Standing in front of a thick wooden door was a guard. Its eyes stared at them from high above, and when its mouth opened, its chin scraped the ground. All Jason and Eve could do was stare in shock. Then 3 deadly missiles shot out of its mouth.
In the game, Jason often has to jump out of the Sophia and explore on foot. I never liked playing these segments in the game, but a majority of the action in the book is spent outside the vehicle. While searching for more energy power for the Sophia, Jason stumbles upon the first underboss. He's greeted with the same clanging alert noise from the game. This entire battle is described in detail. Dodging some flames, Jason gets in close and kills the pulsating mass. Afterwards, he's convinced that that was the Plutonium boss. Suddenly, a booming voice rings out through the underworld.
You thought that piffling pile of putrescent protoplasm was me? You thought that I, the Plutonium boss, would let myself be outfought by a half-witted child?
Blaster Master dedicates a good portion of its 119 pages on the first 2 areas of the game, and most of that time is spent on only a couple of enemy encounters. The in-game levels are pretty big, so it seems like there could have been some more interesting predicaments for our heroes to get into. After Jason takes down the giant crab in level 2, he returns to Sophia to find that Eve has been kidnapped. At this point, the book completely glosses over levels 3 and 4 with just a few sentences.
Level 3 whizzed by in a hail of laser blasts and vaporizing robots. There, he was attacked by a group of 8 killer robots. Keeping his wits about him, Jason defeated them after a long battle. In level 4, Jason felt a rush of energy. When he got past this level, he would be halfway. The vehicle's power was becoming awesome. It could shoot in all directions, it could hover for long periods of time, it could climb walls and ride along the ceiling.
Obviously the author didn't want to keep Jason on his own for too long. Hey, it'd probably be too difficult to keep that interesting, so it's only a matter of time before he rescues one of his classmates, this kid named Alex who has been in the underground for 2 weeks. He's been tortured and experimented on, eventually just discarded by the Plutonium boss. That's pretty rough for a kid's book, don't you think? The two fight together through level 5 and 6, finally arriving at level 7. At last, we get the big reveal. Fred, Jason's frog, has been mutated into a sick and twisted version of himself. Faced with the harsh reality that he must now kill his best friend, Jason goes into a full-on meltdown.
Jason grabbed Alex's shoulders. "Listen to me, will you? You know the kind of stuff the Plutonium boss is into? Genetic engineering, nuclear mutations. He turned my little pet frog into that thing."
After Alex finally talks Jason into brutally killing his pet frog, the underworld starts to crumble. It's here that the book finally escapes from the shackles of the source material, and just does whatever it wants to in order to rush to the conclusion. Completely foregoing the final area of the game, the kids are transported straight to the Plutonium boss, who, in typical villainous fashion, reveals his grand plan. He's built a machine called the Cyclotron that will allow him to consume the Earth's resources instantly. A couple of well-placed laser shots to the contraption is all it takes to finally defeat the Plutonium boss. After all that, there's no big battle with the true face of evil, a guy with a shield and a flaming whip. After escaping the collapsing underground, we're met with a happy ending. Jason wakes up in his bed convinced it was all a dream. Fred is somehow totally alive and safe.
Suddenly, Jason's face got serious. "What about you, Eve? Where will you go now?" "I've told Alex's parents about my past," Eve said. "They love that kind of stuff," Alex said. "We'll tell everybody that Eve is a distant cousin who's been orphaned and Mom and Dad had to take her in." Eve promised to tell them all kinds of outer space stories.
You know, it's pretty admirable what the book is able to do with the source material. For better or worse, it stays pretty close before totally losing focus at the end. If anything, it made me appreciate just how stupid the entire story setup is. Hey, one thing is for sure though, revisiting these books is a ton of fun, and 25 years on, I can kind of revel in how quirky and weird it is that they even exist. They're a relic from a time long past, and one of those oddities that made being in the video games in the 80s so much fun. I can't wait to check out the rest. While we were prepping to move her out, I unearthed almost a complete set of World